The US election, a global ripple effect. Yo America, it's election time again, the excitement is palpable and the stakes couldn't be higher. And you know what that means? The whole world is watching. From Tokyo to Timbuktu, everyone is tuned in. It's like the Super Bowl. But instead of touchdowns, we're talking about trade deals and foreign policy. The drama is real, and the consequences are even more significant. And trust me, the outcome of this election will be felt far beyond the borders of the good old US of A. The ripple effect is massive, especially in a place like South Africa, where the stakes are high, and the choices are, well, let's just say they're interesting. The political landscape here is as dynamic as it gets. Now, I know what you're thinking. Trevor, why should South Africans care who's running America? It's a fair question. Well, my friend, buckle up because I'm about to break it down for you. The connection is deeper than you might think. It's all about the Benjamins, baby. The financial ties between our countries are strong. The US is one of South Africa's biggest trading partners, and the next president's policies could have a major impact on the South African economy. We're talking jobs, we're talking growth and economic stability. We're talking about the price of rooibos tea in Soweto. Every little detail matters. But it's not just about the money, folks. It's about the bigger picture. This election is also about values, the principles that guide us. America likes to think of itself as a beacon of democracy and human rights, and its actions on the world stage have a way of influencing other nations. The ripple effect is undeniable. So, yeah, South Africans are paying attention to what's happening in America because what happens in America doesn't stay in America. It reverberates globally. It's like a Kardashian wedding. Messy, dramatic, and everyone's got an opinion. And just like that, the world is watching, waiting, and reacting. Okay folks, let's talk AGOA. No, it's not a new dance craze sweeping the nation. AGOA stands for the African Growth and Opportunity Act, and it's a big deal for South Africa. Basically, AGOA gives certain African countries, including South Africa, preferential access to the US market. That means South African businesses can sell their goods in America with lower tariffs, making their products more competitive. Think of it like this. AGOA is like that friend who always lets you use their Netflix password. It's a sweet deal and South Africa has definitely benefited from it. Thanks to AGOA, South African exports to the US have skyrocketed, creating jobs and boosting the economy. We're talking cars, we're talking wine, we're talking those delicious biltong snacks that everyone loves. But here's the catch. AGOA isn't a free pass, it comes with conditions like respecting human rights and upholding democratic principles. And every few years the US gets to decide whether to renew AGOA or not. So you see, the US election has a direct impact on whether South Africa gets to keep its Netflix password. And trust me, nobody wants to go back to watching grainy pirated movies. Now let's talk about the Donald. Remember him? The guy with the hair and the tweets? Yeah, that guy. Well, Trump's relationship with Africa has been, shall we say, complicated. Some might even call it grab him by the, well, you know the rest. During his first term, Trump didn't exactly make Africa a priority. He once famously referred to African nations as shithole countries, which, let's be honest, wasn't exactly the best way to win friends and influence people. And when it came to AGOA, Trump was all about putting America first. He even threatened to kick South Africa out of the program over some trade disputes. So, what would a second Trump term mean for AGOA? Well, it's hard to say for sure, but it's safe to assume that South Africa might have to walk on eggshells a little bit. Trump's unpredictable nature and his America First agenda could make for a bumpy ride. It's like riding a roller coaster with a baboon at the controls. You never know which way it's going to go. Now, let's talk about Kamala Harris. She's a different story altogether. As the daughter of immigrants, Harris has a more global perspective than her predecessor, and as the first female vice president, she's all about breaking barriers and empowering marginalized communities. So, what would a Harris presidency mean for AGOA? Well, on the one hand, Harris has expressed support for AGOA and its goals. She sees it as a way to promote economic growth and development in Africa. But on the other hand, she's also likely to be tougher on issues like human rights and corruption. Harris is all about accountability, so she might push for stricter conditions on AGOA eligibility. Think of it like this. Harris is like that cool aunt who lets you borrow her car, but only if you promise to drive safely and fill up the tank. She wants to help, but she's not going to give anyone a free pass. Section 5, Beyond Trade, Social Issues, and the US Election. But hold up folks, Because it's not just about the money, it's about the very fabric of society and the values we hold dear. This election is also about social issues, and that's where things get really interesting. These issues touch on the core of human rights and equality. See, America's cultural influence is like a can of Coke. It's everywhere, and it's not always good for you. It can be sweet, but it can also be overwhelming. Take reproductive rights, for example. This is a deeply personal and contentious issue that affects millions of women. The U.S. is a major funder of global health programs, including those that provide access to contraception and safe abortion. These programs are vital for women's health worldwide, but under Trump, funding for these programs was slashed, which had a ripple effect around the world, including in South Africa. The impact was felt far and wide. Now, Harris is a staunch advocate for reproductive rights, so she's likely to reverse those cuts and prioritize funding for global health. This could bring significant changes. And then there's the LGBTQ+ community. Their rights and recognition are also on the line. Trump's administration wasn't exactly known for its LGBTQ+ friendliness. Many policies were seen as regressive. In fact, they rolled back protections for trans people and banned trans people from serving in the military. This was a significant setback. Harris, on the other hand, has a long history of fighting for LGBTQ+ rights, and she's vowed to make equality a top priority. Her stance could lead to progressive changes. So, yeah, this election will have a real impact on the lives of LGBTQ+ people in South Africa and beyond. The stakes are incredibly high. Section 6. Trump's Africa, a history of controversy. Let's face it, folks, Trump and Africa haven't always seen eye to eye. It's like trying to pair a Shweshwe shirt with a MAGA hat. It just doesn't work. Remember when Trump called those African nations shithole countries? Yeah, that didn't go over too well. And let's not forget his baffling suggestion that we inject disinfectant to cure COVID-19. I mean, come on, man. Look, I'm all for straight talk, but there's a fine line between being blunt and being disrespectful. And when it comes to Africa, Trump's words have often been hurtful and counterproductive. It's like he's trying to win a staring contest with a rhino. You're not going to win, and you're probably going to get hurt in the process. Section 7. Harris and minority rights, a beacon of hope. Now, Kamala Harris is a different story. As a woman of color who's faced her fair share of discrimination, she gets it. She understands the struggle for equality and the importance of representation. Throughout her career, Harris has been a vocal advocate for minority rights, both in the U.S. and abroad. She's spoken out against police brutality, racial profiling, and systemic racism. And she's promised to use her platform to amplify the voices of the marginalized. For many South Africans, Harris represents hope. Hope for a more just and equitable world. Hope for a leader who understands the struggles of the oppressed. It's like that feeling you get when you finally find the perfect pair of chappies, comfortable, stylish, and built to last. Section 8. South Africa responds, a balancing act. So how is South Africa reacting to all of this? Well, it's a delicate balancing act, my friends. On the one hand, they want to maintain good relations with their biggest trading partner. But on the other hand, they can't ignore the blatant disrespect and potential harm that a Trump presidency could bring. It's like trying to have a braai with your in-laws. You want to keep everyone happy, but you also don't want to burn the Boer Wars. The South African government has been cautiously optimistic about a potential Harris presidency, seeing it as an opportunity to strengthen ties and advance shared interests. But they're also aware that U.S. foreign policy is often driven by domestic politics, and they're not taking anything for granted. It's a bit like watching a Springboks game. You're hopeful, you're nervous, and you're ready to celebrate or cry into your castle light, depending on the outcome. Section 9. The final verdict, a complex choice for South Africa. So, who would South Africans vote for, Trump or Harris? This question isn't just about personal preference, it delves into the heart of South Africa's future and its place in the global arena. It's a tough question, my friends, with no easy answers. The stakes are high, and the implications are vast. It's like trying to choose between a bunny chow and a Gatsby, both delicious but in very different ways. Each option offers something unique, yet the choice can be incredibly personal. On the one hand, Trump's economic policies might appeal to some, especially if they believe he can protect South African jobs and boost trade. His business-first approach could be seen as a way to invigorate the economy. but his unpredictable nature and his history of making offensive remarks about Africa are major turnoffs for many. These factors create a sense of uncertainty and distrust. Harris, on the other hand, is seen as a more stable and predictable choice. Her political demeanor and consistent policies offer a sense of reliability. Her focus on minority rights and her commitment to multilateralism are reassuring to many South Africans. These values resonate deeply with a nation that has its own history of struggle and triumph. But some worry that her policies might come with strings attached and that she might not be as focused on Africa as they would like. The fear of being sidelined in favor of other global priorities looms large. Ultimately, the decision of who to support is a personal one. It reflects individual values, hopes, and concerns for the future. But one thing is for sure, the outcome of the US election will have a profound impact on South Africa, for better or for worse. The ripple effects will be felt across various sectors and communities. It's a reminder that we live in a globalized world, and that what happens in one corner of the planet can have far-reaching consequences. Our interconnectedness means that decisions made thousands of miles away can shape our daily lives.